I would like to invite you to join me in becoming more conscious of manipulated conflict. Here's what I mean by that. I'm going to share with you a story from a few years ago while I was walking through my hometown with my auntie, and it was Christmas time. And it was beautiful, glorious. All houses were decorated, lots of lights, and it was cold, and it was my favorite perfect time of year. And as we were walking, she was saying to me, they want to impose and they don't want us to say this, and they get offended when we do that, and they don't want us to celebrate this. And who the they people were that she was talking about were Muslims. The irony is that I was listening to her say this to me as I was watching and looking at all of these houses that were decorated with Santa Clauses, that had Merry Christmas written on them, that had ho, 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 that had things Silent Night. English words were everywhere. And the thing with Santa Claus is that Austria doesn't have Santa Claus as its Christmas ambassador. We have Christkindl, which is an angel that comes on Christmas Eve and decorates the tree and leaves the gifts for the kids. So as she was telling me about the they and how offended they are and how they want to come and infiltrate our culture and bring in theirs, I was watching how a different culture had infiltrated and brought in theirs. Now, this is not an anti-America video, but it's just a really beautiful example to highlight what I would love us to become more aware of. Now, where was she getting this information that they were offended and that they wanted? Well, she was getting it from mainstream media. She was getting it from the Austrian equivalent of Today Tonight and A Current Affair. And these days, sadly, shows like 60 Minutes. She was being told about who was offended and why they were offended. But I would love for all of us to start becoming aware of, she'd never spoken to a Muslim person. She'd never had that confirmed. She'd never had anybody say to her, I'm offended by Christmas. And on the other hand, all these Americanisms were being picked up in the culture. Suddenly, Christkindl wasn't the person that was in people's windows. It was Santa Claus, and English words were everywhere. Now, I'm not against that, but it just highlighted beautifully. And again, this is not anti-America. This is not saying America are trying to infiltrate the world while they want us to hate other. This is simply saying, when we are told that there is a group offended by something, it does the rounds, coon cheese, this, that, we're not allowed to say that anymore. This offends that group. This offends that group. I'd love us to stop and ask, firstly, is this true? Is this group really offended by something on a cheese wrapper? Is this group really offended by something that this culture has celebrated for 2020 years? Well, Christmas wasn't celebrated for whenever we started celebrating Christmas, whenever we took it over from the pagan traditions that kind of started most of what we now call Christmas. But do you see my point? When we're flicking through social media, when we're hearing different people say, we're not meant to use this word anymore, I'm not talking about words that are very clearly offensive. I'm talking about whenever we're told that, somebody's offended if we say Merry Christmas, and we're not allowed to have this anymore, and kids aren't allowed to do this at school, and no, we're not allowed to sing Baa Baa Black Sheep. When we are told things that set our bullshit detector off, right? Let's stop and say, did they really? Did they really? Or is this manipulated conflict? Now, I know these are small examples of manipulated conflict, and I don't want you yelling at this video saying, oh my God, you have no idea how far this runs. I do. But let's just start being conscious of, who does this narrative serve? Who does this conflict serve, right? So let's not fall for it. Let's think of life like a game of snakes and ladders. The ladders we've kind of followed in our lives, but in a misguided way, because ego decided what climbing the ladder was. And ego decided that climbing the ladder was having a bigger house and a better job and earning more money and a more beautiful partner and thinner thighs. Let's see climbing the ladder as a conscious climbing to a place where we're not as easily triggered, to a place where we can live in peace, to a place where we can all respect each other more than what we do now, to a more equal and harmonious place. And the snakes, let's start recognizing the snakes, because when we don't, we slip back down. And I believe that things are dotted around and stories make the news and stories get told of what offends them and what they don't want us to say and what they don't want us to do and how they are trying to say how we can live our lives and how they are trying to come into our culture. You know, it's just an example. I know this is in all structures of life, and I know there are many, but let's unite this week. Let's unify our intention to become aware of the manipulated conflict. You know, even just when you read a story and go, but are they really offended? But do they really want us to change the wrapping? But do they really get offended when they read the name of that cheese, or when they read the name of, yes, with some things they have a history and and I'm not saying that this should all be blindly dismissed. I'm just saying, let's be more aware of the snakes that are purposefully put there to lower our consciousness and to get us into conflict, even if it's just while we're sitting on the couch scrolling through social media and we're getting more and more annoyed and we're finding ourselves more and more frustrated at how stupid people are and, oh my God, it's all, Let's recognize that some groups benefit from that manufactured and that manipulated conflict. And let's move forward being more aware and alert. When that kind of pops up, let's just ask some questions. Let's just think, I've never spoken to anybody about this and I don't know if they feel that way. So the next time I meet someone, I'll say to them, hey, is this offensive to you? And let's just start living from that perspective more consciously, because this is a time when we are required to unite. This is a time when all sorts of stories can be spread to manipulate us. I know I'm starting with a really, really basic example. It was really just to point out to you, the irony of they are trying, as I'm watching how a different culture has taken over. Okay, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It was certainly not done by force. I'm just saying that let's be aware of, do they really think that? Do they really not like our way of life? Do they really want to come in and change things about how we live and our beliefs? Let's just question that, and let's just be aware of the snakes as we're going through the game of life. And let's recognize that the ladders are different climbs to what we have been taught or what our ego tries to convince us is a rising in the game.